How does that fly?
Right. Well, here, I mean, okay, so I'm going to parallel Nietzsche for a second, right? So when Nietzsche was talking about the supernatural in Human All Too Human, and when he speaks about it, he says something, again, this is paraphrased, so to this extent, that when we speak about things that are supernatural, or omnipotent, or omnibenevolent, or omni-anything, and we pick exemplary categories beyond human understanding, we're speaking in the negative. And I don't mean i.e. we're speaking in a bad light. I mean, we're speaking in the negative, i.e. negative qualities. So when we say something is supernatural, I mean, if I asked you what are the qualities of that which is supernatural, what you'd end up telling me, and this is a Nietzsche approach, and I agree with him, is what you end up hearing all the time, is that the supernatural is not anything like the natural. It is not colored. It is not extended. It is not quantified in time or space, and all of this, right? So you end up speaking in the negatives, but proposing an infinite amount of negatives gives me no picture as to what it should look like in the positive form. So it's just we're speaking in completely unclear and lacking distinction. These things just lack any kind of clarity. So he says that to tell me that, well, the thing is supernatural means as little to me as knowing the chemical composition of water would mean to the sailor. It does nothing for him. I mean, it doesn't help me understand what's happening. I have no way to utilize this information. It doesn't change anything for me. So it allows me to make some kind of classificatory, relationship. But overall, I'm left with this empty picture. So what is this thing we're talking about? So even if you tell me this thing, proposes existence, I'm still left with this kind of, picture frame without a picture.
Sure. Well, I mean, the only way that you could say that it is not so many different things is because you recognize what it is. The only way that you can say how something is not is to say that it is this sort of this particular thing. In the case of the supernatural, if you want to say it is not the physical, I agree, that doesn't give you much. But if you were to say the supernatural is the basis of the lawfulness of the physical, that's a very different thing.
Right. So, that says that it's the formulating factor, right? So it's what put things in play. But notice the referential words we're using. Right? It is what puts, when I say that Jonathan is the one that does so and so, and then, well, who's Jonathan? I can sketch out what you look like, who you are, your attributes, what you do, what you don't do, even, right, and kind of create this normalized picture of what you are or what you are not. Then I can actually visualize you. But if I were to constantly reference you as the thing that I can't explain, the what, the who, so who pushed the ball? Oh, Jonathan pushed the ball. Well, who is Jonathan? Well, he is the thing that pushed the ball. He is the what that made it move. And that's all the terminology we're going to have, because positive attributes don't exist for it, because they're meaningless to us because we don't understand them, because they're outside of our framework. Well, the thing itself is meaningless. I can know nothing about it. I can know nothing about what it wants. I mean, it's all assumed. So it's all supposed. It's all presumed. I have no real connection to this thing other than
that may or may not be.
Negation.
I mean, okay. So what kind of attribute? Give me an idea of an attribute that you use myself as the example, and I assume we both assume that I exist. But if you were to ask what is John, and you were to say he's the one that pushed the ball, kicked the ball, whatever you said, and are left with merely that, then what additional thing could you know about me that you can't know about, say, a supernatural creator of the physical universe?
Well, the thing is that I'd presume that you're operating in the natural universe, right? So, I mean, I guess that's assumption in that comment that, well, your actions are reflective of natural circumstance. So if you push the ball, I mean, I assume that you have some limb that allows for you to start motion, right? Or transfer motion to the ball, right? So that kind of thing, transfer energy. I don't even know what it means to say that God started the universe. I have more, even in this absent commentary.
If it's meaningful to you that you could say, what is John? John is the one that pushed the ball. And if that is meaningful to you, then to say that God is that which pushed the universe is precisely the same thing. And yet you are saying that is not meaningful
it's
for you
not
anymore.
because you would invoke the fact that what God has is not what we have. I mean, when I say you push the ball, I'm operating under certain conditions, parameters. You're operating within physical constraint, right? You're not supernaturally motivating the ball's movement, or whatever that even means to say, right? Again, I'm just tossing out words that are meaningless to me. I'm sorry. Supernaturally motivated the motion or the creation of something. I don't know what this means, but when I say that Jonathan pushed the ball, I mean there are certain consequent factors that are understood. So you utilize the things that we all utilize to move the ball. But when I say God moved the ball, I mean, unless we mean it the same way, unless we mean, God moved the ball the same exact way, well, that's fine. But I'd hesitate to say that that's what you would say, that God simply pushed it the way
he's playing by the rules, certainly. If he made the rules, that is to say, if he was to make, you were using the word parameters, that the ball is going to move with a particular spin, a particular arc, in a particular way, with a particular momentum, and stop with a particular leftover inertia. Now, all that stuff is something that would not constrain the programmer of the system. So the question
what
really
is it to not be constrained? And that is because I beat you to the punch. So what is it to not be constrained then? I mean, what does it say that God isn't bound by the rules? And again, this is just going to be appeal to negativity. So I say, so what does it mean? Well, God is not bound by natural forces. God is not bound by the rules of logic, or whatever the not is. But I mean, could you tell me what God does?
I could. If he is bound by any law, whether it's inertia or any such thing, you make that binding factor more powerful than what we are supposing from the get-go is omnipotent. Because we are only addressing this concept because it created the universe and is therefore omnipotent. You create God in a fashion that the limitation is more godly than God itself, and suddenly what you thought was God isn't God anymore.
Of course, the paradox ensues, right? Yeah.
Well, it's not a paradox. The problem is that people want to believe that God operates in a certain limited fashion, in such that he gives good presents to the good little children and cold to the bad little children, and that is wrong. In that is putting God under a standard, and it is binding God, which would otherwise be necessarily omnipotent. So what we are left with is to say that God is the basis of the parameters that allows man to push the ball.
Right. No, of course. And I recognize. I mean, okay. I recognize linguistically how that makes sense, right? I suppose that I can formulate some kind of meaning in my head. What it would mean to say God is the originator, right? And that makes sense to me. So God started something, but is it in the same sense? And if not, then I don't know what that would mean to say God started.
In the same sense as what?
But again, well, if we're saying that God, created the universe, right? It's clearly not going to be the same way I created something. So I mean, we're operating on a projection, and that's apparently all we can do, because I can't attribute to you something that I don't understand. It wouldn't even make sense to say that I could.
Well, you can understand it. I mean, all you really have to do to understand the nature of the problem of infinite regression is to see that bodies are moving and they do not beget their own movement. That the movement itself is always going to be coming from something else. So unless there is a magic stone somewhere pulsing out movement, and you can say, here's the physical thing that is making the whole universe world, like a world stone, if you're into the Blizzard series games, then fine. But if you're not good with that, then you have to say that it's something that originated from a non-physical source that began the physical.
And did you see the categorization? I mean, you said non-physical source, and my issue is I don't. It's another negative quality. So
no, well, you don't have to.
What does it mean to say it's non-physical?
It means to say that it's dealing in the world of the lawfulness of this physical world.
Okay.
That the non-physical governing principles of this world that made the ball have the spin, the arc, and the inertia, that is from that realm that the motion was begat.
Well, is it? It doesn't seem to me contradictory or in any way out of the equation to say that the world just has particular parameters it exists under, right? I mean, the same way that let's say you attributed certain qualities and characteristics to God. I mean, I suppose you could say God just acted that way. He just chose to act that way. Mm-hmm. Or you can say, well, that God himself, given his supernaturality, there are certain supernatural qualities that are contained to the supernatural world. Well, did God create those? What about the qualities that pertain to God himself? Say omnipotence itself. That seems to be some kind of attribute. Well, will we say that he needed to be attributed that attribute the same way I'm attributed my qualities and my characteristics and my capabilities?
Right. I think it's difficult.
It's another. I think it's a problem. That seems to come about.